This is Johnny with Tigerbomb MMA, and today I'm going to go over UFC Vegas 113, Bautista versus Oliveira, give you my thoughts, predictions, entire 12-bout card, taking place in Las Vegas in the newly titled Meta Apex, which it's still something you got to get used to, but they're allowing people into the Apex a little bit more frequently, more people, more tickets being sold. So that's a good overall thing. So hopefully it's a little louder than you're used to. That way you don't actually hear coaches obviously telling people what to do, which can make the fights a bit lackluster, because if your corner can hear it, it means your opponent can hear it. It means your fighter can hear it. So everyone's aware of what's going to happen. But main event, awesome. Bautista in this 5-round main event against Vinicius Oliveira, we get to see what he's really capable of, because he's shown very good promise. And, you know, we're going to talk about his wins and losses and et cetera, but it's a very good main event. There's a couple good fighters on here, a couple good cards. It's just that there's going to be a couple fights here that are going to be really tough to talk about, but we'll get to that. Before I talk about these fights, so I did want to bring up the previous fights, the Volkanovski versus Lopez, just because there was a bit of controversy regarding a couple things, but we'll get into that real quick here. Switching over the poster so people know that I am talking about Volkanovski Lopez. Lawrence Liu defeats Rongbo. I don't think it should have been a split decision. I think Lawrence Liu did enough to win. I think just the age of Rongbo kind of got the better of him at that point. Nakamura defeats Sebastian Saleh. Saleh was kicking his ass, and then he got caught, which is kind of crazy because I actually live bet Nakamura at like plus 700 because he was being more aggressive. I'm like, let's see what happens. And he ends up knocking him out with that knee. I really think Saleh is UFC caliber. He was looking good. He was doing exactly what I thought he was going to do, but then he just got caught. So that sucks. Don Marfan defeats Kim. Frogman just fought kind of idiotic. I think it played right into Fan's jurisdiction, and he should have struck a little bit more with Fan. Even though Fan was looking quicker, I think eventually if you would have sapped his gas tank by kicking him to the body and just kind of pounding him away. Fan looked a little bit more improved. He looked incredibly confident, but we'll see how he does in the UFC. I'm very skeptical about him, just because I think he's going to play out to be a very boring, safe fighter. Let's just say that. Next bout, Offley defeats Yiza, the fight in question. Look, when it comes to judging, this is 100%, I believe, a robbery. Yizha won the last 2 rounds very convincingly. Round number 2, he won it arguably a 10-8. I would give it to him. It's a very bare minimum. He dropped him a multiple amount of times. He hurt him a ton of times. Offley looked good early. And even in the first round, I mean, he looked great, but he also got dropped in that first round. Was it enough to give it to Yizha? One could argue that. I would say no, but it's very close. Last round, 100% Yizha. I thought that was bullshit. The unfortunate thing is when you're betting on guys, particularly at like minus 220 against a hometown guy, essentially, sometimes you're going to get these hometown decisions. And it's happened before with like, not Tafa, with Tai Tuivasa. At one point, they gave him a 30-27 against Jairzinho Rosenstrike, which pissed me off. Jairzinho beat his ass pillar to post, and I bet him unanimous decision like an idiot. I should have just gone decision. And that one judge giving him the fight, Tuivasa, screwed me of a nice little payday. Mikulev had a good amount of money on Mikulev. I had a 4-leg parlay with Mikulev on it. Didn't look good. What's crazy is that I feel sometimes that when I'm breaking down fighters like Mikulev, I did not find as an impressive fighter, but he's very physical and he's got a good ground game. He looked like shit against Oban Elliott, but Oban gave up the back and he got choked out unconscious. Props to Mikulev. Cashed me my first leg. I actually bet him at like minus 125. It just shows you that, say if you're looking at fights and breaking them down, maybe you're not right one night, but you're not necessarily wrong in the entirety of breaking down a fighter. And Mikulev is a guy that you have to be very weary of going forward, because you might just see him choking out Oban Elliott. I call him Obum, but in reality, he's a solid guy. But Mikulev, keep an eye on him to fade him in the future. Jacob Malkoun defeats Torres. Finney, man. Finney looked awful. His game plan was just stand there. That was rough to see. And let's be real, man. Finney is a guy that the UFC did not want. Ultimately, they had to bring him in because he was continuously winning on the Contender Series. And Malkoun on paper is the better fighter, but you expected Finney at the very least at plus 110 plus odds to try to take his head off, and he never seemed to care. And to an extent, Jacob put the jab on him and was rocking him here and there, but man, Finney didn't try, and that was the worst part about it. Like, it's one thing to lose, but when you don't try, and he was landing some shots eventually, but it sucks, man. It unfortunately makes people who bet and picked Finney look like idiots. Cam Ralston defeats Cody Brundage. Cody Brundage, as I've mentioned, is he sucks. Let's just put it that way. He sucks ass. But he is a confidence fighter, and when you sap the confidence away from him, he will turtle up every time. Props to Cam Ralston for showing him the door. Billy Alicana, funny because I predicted that fight 100% accurately. I said Billy's an idiot. He's a better grappler, but he's so confident sometimes. Not even confident. Let's not even use that word. Billy is dumb enough to try to strike with Tafa, and he was. He got hurt. He went for the takedown. He recovered. And then he was landing well on Tafa. And what I said about Tafa is that he's live, but up until what point? Up until he gets submitted. The first exchange, the first time he gave up his back, he got choked out. It just is what it is. Billy, very good at back takes. Billy, also kind of dumb, willing to strike with Tafa. Props to him for actually doing it and coming out the victor. Quillen Salkill defeats Malarkey. Malarkey was sacrificial lamb, right? Salkill, a lot of people thought he was going to win by knockout. Realistically, just take the doesn't go the distance. He was going to cover that regardless. Be safe with a guy like Quillen Salkill, where he can hurt a dude, and if he takes the neck, he's going to take the neck. If he is trying to get a submission and he finds the path of victory is pounding you out, he'll do that. He's a very smart fighter. He's very good. Also, Billy was on my parlay as well, along with Cam Ralston. These last three guys cashed me out. Very nice. Taliesin Teixeira, another guy who listened to me, fought for a decision. Looked like absolute garbage, though. Tai Tuivasa is the better fighter that he's fought, and it proved, and then it also showed that Tai Tuivasa is very dumb because he did not try to go for the knockout, and he tried to clinch with a much bigger guy. It does show that Taliesin's ground game kind of sucks because a lot of people can finish Tai Tuivasa on the ground, especially when they have full mount. Him not being able to do that was embarrassing. Mauricio Hufi defeats Fiziev, proving that, don't count a guy out because he's lost. Him being the underdog in this fight was understandable, but don't let the narrative talk you out of things. Is Hufi explosive? Yes. Is Hufi fast? Yes. Can he hit hard? Yes. Does he have the reach advantage? Yes. Is Fiziev in your face with a lot of offense? Also yes, but Fiziev doesn't really hurt people with the hands too often, and he was getting jabbed up, and when that jab was working for Hufi, he found that right hand, and it put him out bad. And props to Fiziev. Like, I love him so much. The fact that he's just like, hey, I got hit hard. It is what it is. Props to him. I hope he comes back. I hope they give him another easier fight, because getting these killers from, like, Justin Gaethje twice, Mateus Gamrot is a tough fight for a lot of people. And now we got Hufi. That just sucks. Benoit Santini versus Dan Hooker. Hooker was looking good. Unfortunately, Hooker went for a takedown in the second round. He was on his way to finishing Benoit. Like, here's the thing, guys. Benoit sucks. Like, he's a very good grappler, and he's very tough. But when I mean good grappler, that is when he's on top of you, he can dominate at that point. He's heavy. When you don't let him get you down, he is so awkward. He walks towards you like a square box, and he's open for a lot of things, and Dan Hooker was taking advantage of that, going for the guillotine to avoid getting taken down. Working beautifully. Dan Hooker avoiding getting taken down, goes for his own takedown. And that was rough to watch, because I think he was on his way to win a very grueling back and forth fight. And Benoit, look, the Benoit fade is going to be miraculous again. Let's just say that. Make Benoit miraculously fade again. And then Volkanovski defeats Diego Lopez. It is what it is. I picked Lopez. I bet Lopez inside the distance. The only way he could win looked miraculously worse than he did in the first fight. He didn't really try. And I specifically said, if this guy tries to play the Volkanovski point fighting game, he's going to lose. Volkanovski is now the MMA Mayweather. And I like Volk a lot. I think he's fantastic, but he's now a defensive fighter. He's been cracked, and he's really good at that Mayweather style of just doing enough to win the decision. Like, he's still a great fighter, but man, it's just very lackluster. For Diego Lopez, I don't ever want to see him fight for the title again. Like, this was a shot, and it was very good of a possibility that he wasn't going to win, right? Like, there's always that chance. He just froze up again, and it is what it is. Like, I don't see him ever fighting for the title, and I actually see him going on a decent little losing streak. So we'll see how this all plays out, but let's get into the actual card at hand. Back to UFC Vegas 113. First fight of the night. Priscilla Cachoeira versus Claudia Sygula. And this fight gave me a bit of trouble because, realistically, with Priscilla Cachoeira, she hits hard, right? She's an aging woman, and I'll be frank, just to keep it straight, plus 115 on this girl, always going to be good odds because she hits hard. She has that one-punch knockout power, that pressure, makes girls very uncomfortable. Sygula, minus 113, it seems like a good play because Sygula, at the very least, if I recall, blue belt, or no, not blue belt, I'm sorry, purple to brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Very weak when it comes to like the toughness. Her striking's not too bad. She does strike in combinations, but nothing seems to be of like significant consequence, which bothers me. So this is going to have to be a Sygula using her grappling. She's very good at getting the mount. She has gotten submissions in her arsenal. The thing is, I just don't trust her. The other thing, Cachoeira, she sucks. She has developed a decent takedown defense game, but if she's on the ground, she's going to get mauled. And if Sygula gasses out, and it's happened before, you go back and you watch like the Gina Mazzani fight with Cachoeira, Gina's dominating her, and then consequences from her future come back to the past and bite her in the ass, meaning that she fucked over Tim Elliott. And it was just karma a little early where Priscilla comes back and just knocks her the fuck out. Plus 115 on Priscilla Cachoeira is always going to be a good play. I think Cachoeira knockout is probably the way to go. I think she can knock out Sygula. The fact that Melissa Mullins was pounding her out with like very unimpressive ground and pound tells me that Sygula is perfectly okay not having her lip filler busted and just covering up and being like, oh, don't hurt my moneymaker. So realistically, man, odds are Sygula is going to grapple here. I'm going to go with the... It pains me to say, right? Bet-wise, I'll probably take a shot on Cachoeira, but this girl is just so bad defensively. She's too confident in her chin that I can see Sygula getting on her bike and just moving around and landing like overhand right hands and then mixing in the takedowns and possibly even rocking her and dropping her. Because at this point, like Cachoeira, her main weapon is the pressure and the intimidation factor. If Sygula is on her bike, she has decent enough movement. She's going to be bouncing up and down and all around, trying to get that takedown eventually. That's what kind of sways me to picking Sygula by either submission or a decision victory. But the thing is, round number 3, if Cachoeira is not finished or battered, and she's just not exhausted, she's going to be super live in round number 3 to come out here and knock out Sygula because she will get tired. She uses a lot of energy moving around the cage, so that's generally a Cachoeira kind of fight. So maybe Cachoeira round number 3 TKO is very live. But Sygula, if she comes in here with a very intelligent game plan, an American top team game plan, odds are she's going to ground Cachoeira and just edge this out by a decision, like very safely, and avoiding like the plague, running away from Cachoeira round number 3 if it gets to that point. So give me Sygula. Not enthusiastic about it, really. I think Cachoeira is always live. I think her uppercut game is good, obviously, and just the power side and the intimidation factor might be enough, which is not something you want to kind of factor into a fight because these two women have agreed to fight each other. But when you're in there with a woman that fights men for her money, when she doesn't... I don't want to get into it, actually. Never mind. But a woman that is willing to fight men is in front of your face. You kind of freak out a little bit and you do things uncharacteristically. So let's move on here. We've got Gafarov versus Jacoby Wiklacz. Minus 120 for Jacoby. Come back on Gafarov. Minus 115. Dead pick him. So Jacoby beat Patchy Mix. You might argue that he didn't. I'm not here to argue that at all. Like with that fight, it was just like, damn, Patchy, you suck. Jakub, tough guy, Polish fighter. He essentially is the white version of Patchy Mix. He's solid, man. He will go for the guillotines. He's got good grappling, black belt in jiu-jitsu, ever improving striking. He's very confident. The thing with Gafarov, though, where I think he is incredibly good value at this odds, at pick'em odds, Gafarov, for all of his faults, and I will say he has been making improvements. He is very talented with the grappling. He's very powerful. He at times, which is a good thing for a fighter, sometimes shuts his brain off and just fights. Overthinking is the death of a fighter sometimes. And we'll talk about a person who overthinks it in a bit, but I don't believe Gafarov is that. It's a good thing and a bad thing for him because in certain cases he's an idiot and he will foul and just do the dumbest shit and put himself in bad positions where there's a good chance that he might get guillotined here. He has been submitted in the past. I don't think those past mistakes will be up front here. With him having the power advantage, him being ultra confident, he will spin, he will do a lot of crazy shit in there, primarily pressure. I think the difference maker will be the power here. I think with Jakub just beating Patchy Mix, a lot of people's number one bantamweight in the world, I think the hype train is kind of rising up on him. He does have a nasty little guillotine that he used to kind of keep Patchy from like fully passing guard and like fully slamming him to the ground when he got him for the takedown. But realistically, man, he got that takedown whenever he really wanted. Patchy, that is. He just didn't really like set it up correctly because he was kind of a little bitch. Gafarov, he's not going to necessarily need the takedown. He's going to be quicker on the feet. He's going to hit harder. And I do actually expect him to finish Jakub Wiklacz. Give me probably round number 2 or 3 where he finishes him with strikes. He does hit hard. The improvement, I'm telling you, man, like I am one of the biggest Gafarov haters, but the fact that he's just been increasingly getting better within these last few fights. He got caught against Nurmagomedov with that ninja choke, which is shit happens for real. But I do think the last few fights he's been showing an ever improving fight IQ, which to me that's what he's been missing. So if you can put it all together, I think he actually gets a TKO here. I think Jakub is kind of weak to the body. He will gas out. He is comfortable playing off of his back. He's got good little sweeps as well. Like he's a very good try hard fighter, and I respect that about him. The thing is though, when it comes to the pure like I'm gonna go out there and fight, I think Gafarov has him beat there. I think he's a little bit tougher than Wiklacz. Moving on here, we've got flyweight fight, Kong Wang versus Eduardo Moura. And this is grappler versus striker to the highest degree, right? Eduardo Moura is minus 170 comeback on Kong Wang. The Joker, minus 225. Minus 225 on Kong Wang. It makes sense, okay? Like, do I advise taking that line? If you feel comfortable losing money on a woman, by all means. Look, some people are going to make the argument that, like, oh, Eduardo Moura is a very good grappler. The only loss Kong Wang ever had was to Gabriela Fernandez via submission. Thus, why not take a chance on Moura? The thing about Moura is that she's athletically gifted. She's a big girl. Kind of shit striking, right? And as of late, the ways that she's been winning fights is with the striking. Yes, is she a good grappler? She will 100% shell out for a takedown. She gasses out, though. She's notorious for kind of slowing down. And if you can make her work for these takedowns, her body just starts shutting down. She's a bigger girl for this division, and hence she's mainly been using the striking as of late to try to win these fights. In her last fight against already a 40-some-year-old Lauren Murphy, Lauren had some success against her late, but the main success she had against Lauren Murphy was with the jab, the right hand, and the hard low kick. And that's a very pedestrian, very basic setup. That's all she really does, and then mix in the takedowns. Kong Wang, though, a specimen of a fighter. I think her takedown defense is very good. Her striking game is excellent. And what I expect Kong Wang to do is be patient. Now, the reason she lost that fight via submission is that she got overconfident. Overconfidence is the killer of a lot of fighters, and luckily for Kong Wang, she has demonstrated that she's not the same person that she was against Fernandez. In that fight, she was beating her ass, pillar to post. But in one situation, she did get tagged. She was being a little like haha, I'm being cheeky, I'm being cute. And she got tagged and she didn't like it. And because she didn't like it, she wanted it back. And by that I mean she got a little reckless trying to hurt Fernandez to like prove a point. And in that lack of clarity and that fog of battle, she got dropped hard and she got her back taken and submitted. And that is a good learning lesson. And as of late, it's been showing up because she's been way more patient. Like against Bruna Brazil, beat her ass. Against Lipski, there were some moments where Lipski was showing some fight, but like she she composed herself, kicked the shit out of her leg, and then at any point she was just hurting her. Not like ridiculously, but she was in control of that fight 100%. And that's what I expect here. I am fully expecting Kong Wang to be aware of the game that Moura is coming to do, kick her to the body, just be the quicker, faster striker. And I can see Kong Wang finishing her in the later rounds number 2 or 3. The reason I'm like skeptical about 100% saying like it's going to be a TKO is because if Moura gets hurt to the body like bad, I expect her to hit the ground with her back like fucking baby crawl and like try to like pressure Kong Wang to get into the guard. The Charles Oliveira method of recovery, meaning that like, oh, come into my guard, come on, haha, I'm not hurt when she's dying, and then she kills a little bit of time where Kong Wang is going to be like, I'm not falling for that shit. So give me Kong Wang round number 3 TKO. Hopefully I'm wrong about Eduardo Moura flopping to her back after she gets hurt. So we'll see how this plays out, but I do think Kong Wang is more than likely going to beat her ass. It's just going to be really rough in the first round where she may get a takedown and she has to be very careful not to get submitted. But I do think Kong Wang is just a high-level striker, just as big and just as powerful as Moura, but will not slow down. And I think her gaining that embarrassing loss is really put her on a track to like a good trajectory to the title. If she can get past Moura and Moura doesn't pull something out of her ass, it's going to be a good win for Kong Wang in the long run. Moving on here, we've got a very tough fight. Said Nurmagomedov versus Javid Basharat, the lesser Basharat. Minus 150 for Javid, come back on Nurmagomedov, plus 125. This is 100% a narrative-driven fight. And by narrative-driven, I mean both men on a 2-fight losing streak. Both men need to win this fight. So automatically, you can't say, well, they're going to cut Basharat if he doesn't win. No doubt they're going to probably cut him. Or they're going to say they're going to cut Said if he doesn't win. Odds are probably not. He's a very exciting fighter, and he's got the Nurmagomedov name to really sell a fight in Russia. They both need to win this fight. And when both men need to win this fight, they tend to fight a little bit more safe. Javid Basharat is more or less a definition of a safe fighter. He's a very good striker. Like, offensively throws a lot at you. He can be defensively irresponsible. He leaves his head up in the air. I've always said he looks like a Q-tip with his skinny neck and his big head, and Ricky Simone caught him. But he was kind of destroying Ricky at a certain point. Like, he was getting into his flow. And Javid is the better conditioned fighter. Said is just dynamic from pillar to post up until he starts slowing down. But even when he's tired, he has shown methods and techniques that are just like, damn, this guy's solid as shit. It's just his cardio and his style. It just saps his energy. He's so good with the kicks. He's very fast. He's got that nasty guillotine, the ninja choke. And it's just unfortunate that he hasn't really adjusted his style. And it's just been the common thing. Like, you pressure him, push him against the cage, you go for takedowns, avoid getting choked, and he will eventually gas out. He's super dangerous, so Javid has to be careful. And this should be a pick'em, because I do think Javid is probably going to mix in these takedowns like life and death. He does not want to be the outside Basharat outside the UFC fighting for the PFL or something. He wants to be the Basharat brothers, not the shitty Basharat. Nurmagomedov, on the other hand, he's going to try to knock out Basharat from the beginning. And then if he is smart, he should use these moments of like being the harder hitter, the harder kicker, to try to win the fight that way without expelling all of his energy early. That seems to be the common thing. And it's just such a hard fight to predict because Javid's not really a power hitter. He's just a lot of in your face, throws a lot of like point fighting techniques, doesn't really hit you too hard, and then he will mix in the takedown to win the rounds, which he is a smart fighter. But Nurmagomedov is a very capable fighter of finishing a fight at any point and swinging the fight back in his favor if he drops Basharat, if he kicks Basharat hard and he stumbles him or whatever. So it's tough to really navigate. But realistically, though, Said Nurmagomedov is known to gas out. I don't expect that to change. I think Javid is going to have a very technically sound fight, staying on the outside. Being just as big as Said Nurmagomedov is going to help. He is going to have to crowd him, mix in the clinch, use sweeps against the cage, take his back, and just kind of ride him out little by little. Not necessarily try to dominate him. You're not going to be able to do that. Nurmagomedov is too good of a fighter. But once he gets fatigued, when he starts huffing and puffing, that's when he actually will just start like accepting position on the bottom, and then he will try to like use a power move to like bridge out, or maybe try to go for like a ill-advised Kimura on the bottom or some shit like that. It's going to be tough, but odds are I'm giving it like a 51% over 49% over Said Nurmagomedov. If this is a 3-round fight, Basharat is better at those fights. I think he's going to kind of be way more safe in this situation to try to beat out Nurmagomedov. If he beats Said Nurmagomedov, it kind of puts him back in like the talks, right? Yes, he had 2 bad losses, one really bad and one kind of even worse because he lost to Ayman Zahabi in a fight that he shouldn't have lost because he was like too confident in himself. He's going to have to show utmost levels of weaselry, because he's going to weasel this one out via decision. So give me Javid to weasel this one out. All right, now the main event here, Bruna Brasil versus Caitlin Souza. I was like, this fucking fight. -144, Bruna Brasil, come back on Caitlin Souza, +105. I was going back and forth because I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about these two fighters to make your decision informed, because my pick at this point doesn't matter. This is a coin flip fight, and it's going to be an interpretable fight. Just like when, you know, your little niece or your little cousin does dance on stage and he's like, it's an interpretive dance. You're like, what the fuck is that? Interpret it the way you want. Bruna Brasil is an overthinker, as I mentioned earlier. She thinks about throwing the head kick. She thinks about striking. She tries to find it, and then she overthinks so much she doesn't do anything. She's talented, though. Like, good kickboxer, great head kicks. Doesn't throw enough. Caitlin Souza, on the other hand, you can take her down, you can probably control her, but she's at the very least getting better, and she's typically in your face. I think she's going to have the power advantage, maybe not the better overall striker, but I will say the better boxer of the two. I think Bruna Brasil's punches suck ass. Her boxing's god-awful, primarily a decent enough kicker. The fact that she's trading with the fighting nerds, and even now hasn't really improved. At the very least, what has improved is her game planning, but it doesn't really divert from what she already does, which is just incredibly patient and maybe mixing in a little bit of grappling. How I see this fight happening is, with the fighting nerds, I expect there to be a game plan. And I think the game plan being that Souza's not the best of grapplers. She can get taken down. She will find her way back up, but just winning minutes, kind of controlling her against the cage might be the play. Just holding her there with Bruna Brasil being the taller of the two by 3 inches, using her height and reach advantage, keeping her on the outside, and then when Caitlin rushes in, clinching up with her, throwing knees to the body, holding her against the cage for a bit. I think it would be smart, because with Bruna, she gasses out a little bit because she moves a lot. She has very good movement inside the cage, like a karate style. It fatigues her, not to the point where she's death gassed, but it slows her down, which will make her more accessible for Caitlin Souza. With Caitlin being the more powerful of the two, considering her a bit like a discount Jessica Andrade, attacks to the body are going to be there. On top of that, the pressure is going to be there. And as I mentioned, interpreting the fight, interpreting a woman moving forward and throwing hard low kicks and throwing overhand rights against a girl who's just thinking about throwing something might be better visually for the judges than a woman looking almost timid and then clinching up because she's afraid of getting hit. Now, granted, will Bruna possibly do some good work in the clinch? She fucking better. But oddly enough, I think the judges will kind of go into like default mode and be like, well, she's moving forward. She's octagon controlling it. Let's give it to Caitlin Souza. I think Caitlin, for the very least, without kind of shitting on her completely, because I've never really considered her to be like quite UFC level, but I'll give her credit. She is always fighting fights. And what I mean is, like, I think Bruna Brasil is a, what's the word? She's a competitor. Not even that, because I use that for like Henry Cejudo. Henry's a competitor. Bruna Brasil is an opponent, I suppose. She's a point fighter, okay? She comes from like that background of like karate and point fighting and shit. And she tries to find the proper strike to land, where Caitlin Souza will just be in your face because she's an actual fighter. She's going to try to go out there and hurt you. And when you're telling me to pick between two women I don't value very high, and I pick against a lot, the woman who tends to have more volume against Bruna Brasil is going to be Bruna Brasil. If Bruna can implement her game plan where she's staying on the outside and you're just having trouble getting in, she tends to win those fights. I think Caitlin's going to move forward. I think she's going to win a split decision here. I think it's going to be a very interpretable fight. Probably stay away from it. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I think that's all the information you need to know at the very least. So if Bruna does decide to get some takedowns, I don't think her takedowns are all that great. I don't think her top control is all that great. And I think Caitlin Souza can get back up and put a little bit more pressure and maybe fatigue Bruna to the point where she can land better strikes. So that's enough about this fight. Give me Souza by a split decision, specifically. Next bout. I didn't even know this was on the card. Nikolai Veretennikov versus Nico Price. Give me Veretennikov. I did not tape this fight. I actually just found out about it. I think Nico Price is live in the sense for a knockout, but I don't even have odds on it. Veretennikov, I don't value him as much either, but this is going to more than likely be a striking battle where Nico Price is going to need to get it to the ground. Damn, I really wish I knew what the odds were, because if it's like -3 something for Nico, which I doubt, the thing with Veretennikov, like these guys both kind of have the similar kind of style. Strikers, Veretennikov can grapple. My issue with Veretennikov is that when there's a much better grappler, he tends to kind of get dominated. He got dominated by a much smaller man in, not Punahele, in Francisco Prado. Now, for the Punahele fight, he actually showed a bit of like urgency and a bit of grit. I just don't trust him here. I don't trust him against a guy like Nico, who he's a tough guy out. Like, he's been knocked out multiple times, been finished, but the dude is he's a fighter. But give me Veretennikov to come out here and actually knock out Nico Price. I think Nikolai absolutely needs to have a good showing, and I think he's the more durable fighter at this point in their careers, despite the fact that they're both the same age, roughly around the same fights. I think Veretennikov absolutely needs to prove himself to stay in the UFC. Nico loses this one, they'll probably keep him. If Veretennikov loses this one, they don't need him. He's not a name. He's not a guy who's been performing for them. He doesn't have highlight reel finishes like a guy like Nico Price, who can knock you out from the bottom in a multiple different ways. So give me Veretennikov by a knockout, round number 1. See how this plays out. Next bout, Alex Morono versus Daniil Donchenko. This is god-awful for Alex Morono. With Donchenko, I've learned a lot about this kid, and I was pleasantly surprised when I was taping him in his debut in the UFC against Rodrigo Cerezondo, because I thought maybe Cerezondo's going to try to use his grappling. His grappling's solid. But then I've seen the catalogs of Donchenko going 5 rounds, getting up from bottom, pushing a good pace, nasty elbows, nasty striking. This dude might be the best Ukrainian fighter in the UFC. That's how high I am on him. The odds have it in his favor. -590. Alex Morono's been knocked out multiple times. I expect Donchenko to negate everything Morono has. Morono has a funky style, and sometimes he can pull stuff out of his butt by like moving side to side and throwing those overhand rights that technically hit with the wrist. And he's got power, and he's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but man, is he not durable. And I fully expect Donchenko to finish him within the first 2 rounds. It's unfortunate because Morono's been one of these grinders in the UFC for the longest time, but you've seen him hit the highest of highs where you're like, wow, I think Alex is a lot better than I gave him credit for. Too bad for his chin, to the point where you're like, oh, wow, he's actually a lot better than I thought. Maybe his durability is not absolute shit. And you see him get dropped and then finish in the third round after dominating a guy like, why can't I think of his name? Ponzinibbio. The fact that he lost to Nico Price was outstandingly bad. And what was his last loss? Carlos Leao knocked him out. I kind of expect Donchenko to be almost as bad as the Leao fight, but I think it's going to be more calculated, and he's going to find the right shot, and it's going to be a one-shot knockout. He's going to put him out cold with one punch or one knee or one elbow. So give me Donchenko to prove himself again against a veteran in the UFC. Like, beating Morono, for some people might be like, well, no duh, it's a joke. He's a good fighter. He's a very good fighter. And the fact that he's been working hard in his ground game and his jiu-jitsu, it's commendable for a guy like this. For him to take a fight against Donchenko, an up-and-coming 24-year-old guy with 11 years less wear and tear on him, commendable, right? And plus 400 on him, God bless him. But give me Donchenko to really brutally beat up Alex Morono here. Next bout, we've got Dustin Jacoby versus Julius Walker. Short notice bout for Jacoby, minus 205. Come back on Julius Walker, plus 185. The original opponent, actually not even that better for Walker. I think Walker, who was it? Uran Saltibaldayev. I think that would have been a really rough one for Walker. I think in the long run, this might be better for Julius Walker because it is a bit of an aging light heavyweight. Julius Walker's 26 years old. Let me be upfront here. Like, do I think the best years of Dustin Jacoby are behind him? Yes. Do I think Julius Walker is on a bit of a come up? I think with more seasoning, he could develop himself into a decent light heavyweight. Is this going to be the fight? I really don't think so. Minus 205 for Jacoby, plus 165 on Juicebox. Like, Jacoby's a glory level striker. That doesn't mean shit. Let's just be honest, right? Because often you'll hear like, oh, this guy's a former glory kickboxer. You can just get signed to fight in glory, and that's enough. Like, if I were to get $40 to fight in glory, I could then say I'm a glory kickboxer. But when it comes to Jacoby, he's legit. He's a very good striker. He's been training in altitude for the longest time. He's just developed himself into a much better fighter with very good takedown defense, very good get-up game, and he has fought way better competition than Julius Walker. For Julius, his main game plan is to get it to the ground, but his ground game is still very much developing. He just uses his size and his reach, and he tends to overpower most of his opponents. But man, when you see his fights in the regional scene, this guy is not very good at getting takedowns. Like, he just kind of wills himself to get these takedowns, and if he's not technical, he's not going to be able to get it on Jacoby. He might spring something on Jacoby that surprises him, but that's very unlikely. Against Sygula, the worst light heavyweight ever from the UFC, bummiest of bums, so much of a bum that it kind of circles around where you're like, maybe he just looks like a bum against better competition. Let's actually take a shot on this bum against another possible bum in Julius Walker, because I'm an idiot for Sygula, and I think he's not the worst. He's got potential, but the fact that a guy who apparently is a black belt in jiu-jitsu was getting dog-walked by Walker, it was such an embarrassment that it just proved to me that he does not belong. And then he got knocked out he got choked out in like 14 seconds or something by whatever. Walker, his striking's pretty bad. It's still developing. Former basketball guy. He's going to try to get the takedowns. It's not going to work. Jacoby's going to kick him from afar, and I think eventually Jacoby's going to find the knockout shot. Now, Walker is pretty tough for a guy with, 8 fights? He's been hit hard. He fought against Alonzo Menefield, the guy who actually really beat the crap out of Jacoby so badly that Jacoby was dominating that fight. And I'm still salty about it because I had Jacoby, but Jacoby would get hit and then lose the round by getting hurt really bad in a short amount of time. So If you haven't seen the fight, imagine Jacoby wins out of 15 minutes. He wins 13, 14 minutes, but he loses 1 minute in that entire fight very badly that he lost the fight. That's essentially how that goes. So if Walker, I think Walker would be better if you want to take a shot on him. I don't think the odds are big enough to say it, but for him to just bite on the mouthpiece and go buck wild and try to knock out Jacoby might be his best shot. Because if he tries to take him down, he's going to get stuffed, and Jacoby is going to pick him apart, hard low kick. He's going to get essentially a welcome to the UFC, kid. You're not ready. This is what you're dealing with. So give me Jacoby to come out here and actually just show a very measured approach against a guy who, not the best cardio, not the best grappler. He's just, unfortunately, a guy who got called up a little too early to fill a spot for a guy who pulled out. So good for him for having a UFC victory. But let me tell you, Justin Jacoby versus Syrcera would have been dead in the first round. And Walker nearly got killed in the third. So give me Jacoby in the first 2 rounds to finish Julius Walker. Next bout, great fight here. The better Basharat. John Matsumoto versus Farid Basharat. Plus 180 on Matsumoto, minus 235 on Basharat. Now, another fight I was going back and forth on. I do see some love for John Matsumoto, and I understand it. But to keep it very brief, because I spent too much time talking about Bruna Brazil and that other chick, that this fight's going to have to get cut a little bit, because Farid Basharat is very talented. He is the better of the Basharat brothers. He is, I think, higher fight IQ, better defensively, very good striking, more so a point fighter, but he has way more power, I believe, than his brother. I think his jiu-jitsu is better. Both train their jiu-jitsu on and off, I believe. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but they learned a lot from Jake Shields, and Jake is one of the better, as he calls it, American jiu-jitsu guys. Solid dude. Matsumoto, what made me realize that the Basharat is going to win this fight, and realistically why he is going to cover the minus 235, not only is he going to mix in the takedowns, I think he's just a better striker than Matsumoto. Now, Matsumoto has a Muay Thai background, nasty guillotine. This guy is in your face. He's fun to watch. I'm a big fan of John Matsumoto, and I realistically don't even think he should be 17-1. He should be 18-1. I think he actually beat Rob Font, but Rob Font kind of put pressure on him. And that seems to be his style as of late, just pressure, pressure, pressure. He's essentially beating up the younger generation of fighters at this point with his experience, and he got the better of John Matsumoto that night when it comes to the judges. But with John, what I've noticed about him is that he's very good, but I don't think he's as good as maybe some people are expecting him to be in this spot. With Farid, I think he's the better technical striker. He's going to throw straight. I think he's got a much better jab. With him having the reach advantage, I think that jab's going to be landing very, very often. And with the movement of Basharat, I just think he's going to have a nice little coast fight where John Matsumoto will pressure at one point. I think Basharat's footwork is going to get him away from the cage. And when needed, he will shoot on John Matsumoto going forward. I think Basharat, I know his single leg is dirty good. It's really, really good. Taylor Lapilus is a guy that's really hard to hold down, and Farid Basharat was able to get that essentially whenever he wanted. John Matsumoto is known to get about takedowns, but what makes John so exciting is that he goes all out for that guillotine, which you must respect. But with John, why I'm picking against him here, he throws incredibly wide. I think his jab is not very good. He throws a jab, and that's always a good sign, but I don't think it's very good. I think he just kind of throws it just to throw it to gauge distance, not necessarily to land it. Farid's going to throw it with intent. He's going to be popping Matsumoto, and what Matsumoto does best is kind of slip and rip, and he's better at throwing hooks, low kicks, and just kicks in general, but I think Farid's going to be a little too elusive. Now, you can say the narrative machine, well, Chris Gutierrez nearly beat him. He gassed out in round number 3. He was dominating Chris Gutierrez. He was making Chris think his life choices in that fight. He's taking him down, just controlling him, rocked him bad in the second round. And then Chris just said, fuck it, I'm going forward. The thing is, Farid's not really a guy with a ton of power, so he couldn't get him off of him. And, Gutierrez is a very experienced fighter, so he showed a ton of heart in that fight. But even Basharat showed his toughness and his resilience where he was never really hurt. He was never going to lose. He just had to be careful not to get knocked out, and that's what he did. And he won the fight 29-28. It showed me that he has the ability to, in situations of like, oh shit, adversity, he's not going to do anything stupid. I think he's going to bank these 2 rounds in the first and second and more than likely dominate round number 3 because John is not the better of the 2 when it comes to the round number 3. So give me Farid Basharat to come out here and win this fight. I like John a lot, but I think the number one factor in this fight is going to be the jab of Basharat and him mixing in the takedowns. I think Basharat is just very, very good, and I hate admitting that because I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of Basharat, but I have to acknowledge talent when I see it. He's 14-0 for a reason, and he's been fighting very good competition. Him beating Gutierrez the way he did in those first 2 rounds should tell you everything you need to know about his trajectory. For John, I think he needs to work on his boxing. I think, again, he's too wide with his shots, and it's just unfortunate. I think a guy with a very straight jab is going to be able to take advantage of him, mark up his face, and then mix in the takedowns when needed. Give me Basharat to win this one by a decision. I'm sorry, not Matsumoto, Basharat. Moving on here, we've got Mikhail Oleksiejczuk versus Marc-Andre Barriault. Barriault at this point, I hate to say it, like he's plus 215. Oleksiejczuk minus 290. Oleksiejczuk and his brother, prime examples of why moving to Brazil with the Fighting Nerds can revitalize your career. They will be the wood chipper that you need to fix the areas you need to work on. They have a guy that can out jiu-jitsu you and take you down. They have a guy that can beat the shit out of you on the feet. And luckily for Mikhail, he doesn't need to really work on his striking. He just needs to work on his takedown defense. Between the two, Marc-Andre he's a nasty, gritty guy, elbows in the clinch. That bread and butter, it's beautiful. But man, if Mikhail lands on him with that laser left, he's going to put him out as, picture this, Mikhail's dipping and dodging, and Marc-Andre is trying to counter him with like a lead left hook. Mikhail lands that laser beam left. You're going to see the left hook of Marc-Andre whiff over as he spins around and gets knocked out cold. That's kind of what I'm predicting here. Give me Oleksiejczuk round number 1 knockout. Marc-Andre is going to try to use this physicality to get it to the ground. We've seen the improvements from Oleksiejczuk, and he's going to come out here and knock him out. I just believe that. I think the improvements have been there. In the last 2 fights, he's got a level of confidence in him that he hasn't had in a while. This guy is a dude who beat like a surging at the time. This is prior to him becoming the man he is today, like a main event dude, but a prime, not so prime, but surging Khalil Roundtree, where he like ate everything that he gave. He did pop for steroids, but neither here nor there. But at middleweight, I want to see where Oleksiejczuk can go at this point. This guy's always been talented. He's always been fun to watch, but he's had that unfortunate weakness to getting dragged to the ground and just kind of giving up positions. And as of late, it's just been looking good. Damn, Michel Pereira choking him out, Kevin Holland submitting him, and then Shaira Magomedov was like I think the eye opener for Oleksiejczuk, because he should have won that fight. He's a much better boxer. He just got outkicked. Marc-Andre's chin is not going to be able to withstand that punch. Moving on, we've got Jailton Almeida versus Rizvan Kuniev. Now, let's just say it like it is. Minus 145 on Almeida is a gift from the gods. And as I call him, God King Almeida is gifting us with minus 145. Kuniev, plus 115. Doesn't make sense. Look, man, you could say till the cows come home that he beat Curtis Blades. Man, I had to exhale because Curtis Blades is. I don't want to say it. I've said it too many times in the past, but Curtis Blades is a mandibly non-durable, mentally low IQ individual, if you understand what I'm saying. The easier way to say it is that Curtis Blades is a chinny retard. Curtis is unfortunately a big name. And if you get close to beating Curtis Blades, like Kuniev did in that split decision, it makes people think that he might be live to beat a guy like Almeida, that in heavyweight, a guy who arguably actually beat Volkov, who is like, here's the thing with Volkov, he's such a big dude and his jiu-jitsu has gotten so much better and he's incredibly experienced that losing to him is not the end of the world. It's a tough fight. Here, though, what Almeida does best is not only is I think he's going to have the striking advantage, he's going to be the powerful of the two. His grappling is going to be better, and he's going to run through Kuniev in the first round. I don't think Kuniev is a guy that he's okay. Let's just say that he's okay. There's nothing special about him. Him beating Hugo Kuna is not a big deal. Look, Denzel Freeman finished Kuna. Okay, Denzel Freeman, and we just saw what happened with him, for God's sake. Give me God King Almeida. That's his true nickname, by the way, the God King Jailton Almeida, to finish Kuniev in the first round via submission. I just think he's that much better than him. You put Kuniev in there with a guy like Volkov, he's going to get finished. Give me the top of the division, number 3 in the world, to finish some guy who doesn't belong in the UFC just because he fought the husk of what used to be called Curtis Blades to a split decision. Give me a fucking break. Give me Almeida to finish him. Even if Almeida gets knocked out, which he is also a bit of a chinny fellow, but he's not a retard, Even if he loses minus 145 on a guy who's typically like minus 500 against fat heavyweights, come on now. Spare me. Moving on, Amir Albazi versus Kyoji Horiguchi, the Gooch. Horiguchi. I love Horiguchi with like a passion, so much so that it pained me to pick against him in his last fight. But he's minus 340 here against Amir Albazi, who is plus 265. A guy who hasn't fought since he got his ass beat a year and 2 months ago against Brandon Moreno. I was in Boston, I believe. Was I in Boston? Because whenever I'm traveling, it just so happens to coincide with like a fight night. I do recall being in a crappy, it was Boston, in a crappy hotel, motel, watching Albazi get destroyed by Brandon Moreno. That was after he came back from like surgery in a fight where he controversially beat Kai Kara France, which I thought initially Kai Kara defeated him, but there's little things that Albazi does that are like kind of tricky and clever. I really thought him coming back, he was going to beat Moreno, but it just showed that Moreno was a different level. Even though Moreno had been showing signs of slowing down, I guess it shows Albazi has a limit, and him being away for another year against Horiguchi. And here's the thing about Horiguchi. I will also admit this guy has kind of been showing glimpses of slowing down as well. He's not as fast as he used to be, and this guy is like a little fucking Speedy Gonzalez, man. Like, what made him so fun to watch was that he was a great striker. He can mix in the grappling. His grappling, as he's been getting older, has been getting incredibly better. Like, this guy will take you down. He can submit you. He's just been like leveling up at American Top Team with his like, man, we could probably still see it, but him versus Pantoja, these two guys are like training partners. These guys are like the OG Koscheck and Finch, where they're like, we won't fight each other until it's for the title. But in reality, they're like, I'll fight you any fucking time to make money. And I respect that about these two guys. But Horiguchi's got him beat everywhere. He's the better striker. He can avoid the takedowns. And the reason I picked against him in his last fight against Tagir, because Tagir stylistically was a really tough matchup for him. It's just that he showed levels with the speed against Tagir, and it did show that Tagir was just cutting way too much weight. I really expected Tagir to actually get him down, kind of control him, and kind of ride him out. Not finish him, but like make it evident that he just kind of like outpointed him with the grappling. And then Horiguchi is the one who actually took him down and choked him out. And that to me was like, man, that fills me with joy. Being that wrong, it filled me with so much joy. But like when you see him fight outside the UFC, you can see the like, oh man, like he's kind of struggling with certain kind of guys, and him coming back to the UFC triumphantly like that was just like, man, I've never been so happy to be so wrong. And in this fight, though, I do expect the same. Albazi's not a guy that is going to present anything that he hasn't seen already. Horiguchi's a better striker. Albazi isn't going to do anything crazy like do a spinning back fist like Sergio Pettis to knock him out. I was so salty about that. I had money on Horiguchi. He was cruising. And then fucking Pettis throws a spinning back fist and knocks him out. And I was like, get up, Horiguchi, get up. It's rough. That's how much I love this guy. But yeah, I do expect Horiguchi, if he wants to just stay on the outside and kick, he can do that. If he wants to mix in the grappling, he can do that. Ring rust will be a thing and a factor for Albazi. We've seen it in the last fight against him and Morono, and it shows to me that Horiguchi is and will probably still remain for a while in the elite of the division. I expect him to be like top 5, no time. The thing is, his window is closing, and it's going to be a sad day because he can wake up the next day, he can turn 36, and he's just not the same guy. He can lose a bit of speed, and maybe someone can catch him. I just don't expect it to be Albazi. Albazi has shown toughness. Give me Horiguchi by a decision here. Next bout, main event. As I mentioned, great main event, 5 rounds. Mario Bautista, Vinicius Oliveira. Minus 200 on Bautista. Come back on Lockadog. Vinicius Oliveira is plus 150. Now, to break it down as simply as I can, like, Oliveira is a guy who uses his will and imposes his physicality on his opponents to intimidate them. We saw that in his last fight against Kyler Phillips. And here's the thing about Kyler. I was so pissed off. Let me explain my thought process in the fight with Phillips. I knew Lockdog was going to win. I knew it from, like, I felt it in my bones. Like, if I could donate my bone marrow and give it to somebody else, they would also feel it and be like, oh yeah, Vinicius is going to win this fight. The problem is, I'm like, Kyler Phillip is very good in the first round. Vinicius is a little too high of a favorite. Let's wait. Let's wait and be smart. Let's be sharp little boys and girls and wait until Kyler Phillip wins round number 1. Once he wins round number 1, we can live bet Oliveira at a slight discount, where it's going to be that Kyler, say, plus 200, he drops down to maybe minus 1 or plus 150. We're probably getting like maybe minus 130 on Oliveira. Never happened. Kyler Phillips fought like a pussy. It was like, wow, the intimidation factor of Oliveira is that high that a guy who typically wins round number 1 on speed and like dynamic kicking ability could not do anything against Oliveira. And that's what he's known for. He is sloppy, he gasses, but he pushes hard. He's a big dude for the division. Arguably he's probably going to have to move up to 145 eventually. The thing about him, though, is that he's not technically good. And that's what's always pained me about him. Another thing about him is that he's very cocky sometimes. He's kind of fixed that issue. He's been dropped in the past and finished by kind of being a little too like, hit me in the face. And his opponent will be like, sure, and then he knocks him out. With Oliveira, though, in a 5-round fight, he's going to gas. It's going to happen. He's got 2.5 rounds at best to try to get Bautista out of there. And he's been knocked out himself. The thing is, so Bautista's got cardio. He's got the wrestling. He's got striking, more technical than Oliveira. And I hark back to his fight with Sopai. Bernardo Sopai was able to essentially dominate Oliveira. It kind of dog-walked him, nearly finished him. And I remember thinking and telling people, and it made me look stupid. I said, win or lose in this fight, I think Sopai is going to be the better prospect between the two. And then Oliveira breaks his face with a flying knee, and then he kills him. I was like, oh, crap. I didn't expect that to happen. Oliveira has that ability to put your lights out. He has the ability to fight through fatigue. But, man, when Bautista starts ducking under and getting these takedowns on him and Vinicius slowly starts sapping up, like Bautista is himself can be a bit of a letdown. Hence the minus 200. I think it should be like minus 3. But the problem is that he's going to have to deal with a lot of offense and a lot of crazy hard techniques from Vinicius Oliveira. And is that going to take a wear and tear on Bautista? And it very well could, hence the odds being the way they are. But we've got 2 guys, same size. Bautista, I believe, is just a step above. Now, again, if you're on the Vinicius Oliveira side, I think he's going to absolutely need to win this by finish. So might as well take the finish line. I just don't think he's going to be able to win a decision against Mario Bautista, because if he gets to that point, he will be tired and Bautista's going to take over and maybe even finish him late. And that's kind of what I'm thinking. I am thinking Bautista, who is striking, is just as wild at times with the flying knees and such to Vinicius Oliveira, but he's way more technical and way more measured. Now, the biggest factor in this fight is, and it's a very unfortunate situation because you don't get this with many fighters, Oliveira does have that intimidation factor that will make fighters fight a bit out of character. I don't think that's going to happen with Bautista. He's been in there with a guy who, actually, realistically, I think Oliveira in a 3-round fight could give Umar Nurmagomedov issues where he's like, oh shit. And it's just a matter of time if he can get him to the ground and then maybe try to hold him there. But a guy that's been in there with Umar, a title challenger, maybe future title contender again soon, I don't think he's going to be too worried of a guy like Oliveira. I think Oliveira is fun. I think he's fun to watch, but I think he's at a certain level. And I think that intimidation factor and that pressure, he's a pressure fighter, can take you so far. Where a guy like Bautista, very good footwork, very good striking, very measured, very straight with his punches, and very good at getting takedowns. Black belt in jiu-jitsu himself, is going to be able to take advantage, and I think he's going to be very smart in this fight. He needs to win this fight. Beating a guy like Oliveira, who's undefeated in the UFC, is going to put his name right back in there to be like, hey, you need somebody to fill in real quick. You need someone in the fight for the title. I'm here for you. You never know in this division. Like, Peter Yan is hurt. They're not probably going to give it to O'Malley, but they could be like, hey, Umar's also hurt. Who do we have left? Mario Bautista just had a really good showing against Vinicius Oliveira. Let's put him in there. Very unlikely, but shit, crazier things have happened. Michael Bisping was a former champion on short notice. So give me Bautista to come out here and actually get a finish, whether submission. I'm going to say submission and say round number 4. I think he's going to withstand all that pressure from Vinicius. He's going to have the better footwork. Vinicius is going to be taunting, doing his thing, just throwing wildly. It's just up to Mario not to let that get to him and let those strikes hit him. And I think later, as the fight keeps going, Vinicius will slow down. The weight cut will have a tremendous amount of effect on him. And that's where Bautista is going to take over. But again, it's up to Bautista not to allow himself to get finished. He's let it happen. He's lost to a much, much worse competition in Trevin Giles because he just kind of got a little too carried away and he just got caught. That could happen here against Oliveira, who throws with everything. He throws with every bit of himself. And he hasn't really had too many finishes other than that Sopai fight. But like when he throws, he throws. Like you can be damn sure about that. I'm excited about this one. This is going to be a great, probably not only the most anticipated fight of the year so far, but between the Volkanovski fight and like the Gaethje Pimlet, for main events, I think this is a much better main event. Granted, you could put it as a co-main event, but as a main event 5 rounds, highly intriguing. If this is a 3-round fight and Vinicius is plus 150, I think Vinicius is live to get 2 rounds because of that. Again, he does what he does. But when it's 5 rounds, that's where it gets dicey and that's where it gets interesting. So give me Bautista, round number 4, submission. But guys, let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know what you think overall about this card. And just overall the breakdown, just because like it's fun for me. It really is fun breaking down these fights, especially when there's like, oh man, this could really be a close one. And I hate to say it, but like intimidation factor being a key to a specific fight sounds fucking stupid. But when a guy like Oliveira does it so often, and you go back and you watch that Kyler Phillips fight, you 100% see it. It makes things a little bit more intriguing with that extra variable. But yeah, Johnny Tigerbomb MMA. Let me know what you think. Leave a comment. See you next week.